You're pretending we don't already live in that reality with advertisers? I mean, it's even worse than that, because at least like with advertisers, they have your geolocation, they have all your data. It's harder to trace it. It's harder to track it down and pinpoint it to the user. Whereas with this, it's literally your ID. It's your address and your fucking ID. You could still you could still pinpoint this information with everything that data brokers sell. But I feel like this is beyond that. An ID scan to buy beer isn't the same as a permanent picture stored in some third-party site. Exactly. This major ID database owned by an Israeli company was revealed to be leaked for 2 years. ID verification service for TikTok, Uber, X exposed driver's licenses. As social networks and porn sites move towards verified identity model, the actions of one cybersecurity researcher showed that ID verification services themselves could get hacked too. Yep. I think you're underestimating how normalized this is for younger people. I just graduated and my teachers could literally see a live feed in my browser at all times, even from home. And trying to write a paper about gun violence meant having the government stats on it be censored by the firewall. I don't think that it's like, I don't think it's better to say, well, it happens already, so we should have more of it, you know? Chatter's University accepted invasive apps. Announces new health tracking system. Experts raise ethical and legal concerns. Trump announces new health tracking system. Trump admin announces launching a new program to allow Americans to share personal health data and medical records across health systems and apps run by private tech companies. Are you fucking joking? More than 60 companies, including major tech companies like Google, Amazon, and Apple, as well as healthcare giants like United Health Group and CVS Health, have agreed to share patient data in the system. The initiative will focus on diabetes and weight management, conversational artificial intelligence to help patients, digital tools such as QR codes and apps that register patients for check-ins or track medications. Bro, I'm being... I just can't... I can't tell. I don't know... It's so fucked, man. It's so... Everything is so fucked. Like... Who knows what they could do with this information? I can't tell if I'm being too alarmist about this or if I'm not being alarmist enough about this. You know?
Since they were pushing back in the 70s.
As ever, we've been here before.
Where are these like presupposed beliefs coming from? Why do you think that there is so much stuff in this law that sort of assumes that social media is inherently addicting? It is responsible for the decline of mental health. Like, where do you think this is all coming from?
Well, you get a lot of them from the moral panic pieces, as you said, and a lot of it is also Jonathan Haidt. His book, The Anxious Generation, kind of put it into the mainstream of like pop psychology, basically, even though none of that evidence is causal. It's all correlational. And I'll take your listeners on a brief law tangent, real brief. When laws target speech based on the content of the speech, they have to go through a legal test called strict scrutiny. The courts will apply strict scrutiny. And one of the parts of that test is that the government has to prove that there is an actual problem in need of solving. And when California tried to ban the sale of violent video games to minors, it put forth an expert who put his study there that said this is, correlates with higher mental health problems and acts of violence. And the court said, no, you have to have causal evidence. You have to have actual data that shows this is a problem. And all of the studies so far have said there's a correlation, but there's not necessarily causation. In fact, some studies have found a positive effect on kids' mental health. And so the science is very much not there yet. But Jonathan Haidt keeps pushing for this kind of legislation, saying it's the only thing we can do. It's the only reasonable response to this kind of data, which of course is still correlational. It's just that's a lot of what's driving this.
It is. It's a lot of nonsense. And this is a man, by the way, who's on the board of Barry Weiss's fake censorship university. So I don't think he cares much about the speech concerns here.
Well, he's actually like come out and said, oh, Elon Musk and Linda Yaccarino say it's not a free speech problem, as if they are the two foremost experts on First Amendment law in the country. I was like, okay.
Elon Musk, who's banning journalists, who has currently banned multiple journalists for reporting critically on him and is one of the most anti-free speech tech CEOs ever. He's constantly threatening defamation suits around anyone who covers him critically.
My jaw dropped when I saw that. I was like, do you know what a credible source versus a non-credible source is? Because this does not indicate that you do.
He does not. But speaking of Elon, actually, and I think another thing that you hear from people is, well, we've changed COSA a little bit, and now tech companies are on board. X actually supports this legislation. So does Apple. So if it is really so dangerous to these tech platforms and companies, why would Apple and X support these types of laws?
Well, I don't know that it's necessarily dangerous to the companies. The companies that operate globally are kind of already set up for compliance, and Apple probably sees itself in a way as like already kind of doing all of this in a sense.
Yeah, Apple also doesn't have social media.
Right. And there's a side effect of that. Is there's actually a war right now over if there is going to be age verification, should it be the device manufacturer or the app store?
How does China do it? China has complete ID verification, I think. Everything that you do is connected back to your identity. China is like your wallet, your ID, everything is on your phone already. So China already has the most aggressive forms of government surveillance, which is interesting because a lot of people criticize that kind of government surveillance. But yeah, your identifying number is tied to everything that you're doing, both online and also offline. As a matter of fact, things that you're doing offline still require your online ID. Why is ID a bad thing? Well, one, it improves government surveillance, which already exists. But more importantly, it also opens up every single person to potential harm. Look at what happened with the T application. Look at what happened with the counter T application, where leaks happen and then you have people's identities all over the internet. Think about it think about it in the real world. In the real world, imagine demanding IDs for everything that you're doing, like for walking down the street, for talking to your friend, going to the movie theater. And one might say, well, there's like age, there's some kind of safeguards against like children watching shit that they shouldn't be, and there's truth to that, even though people obviously try to avoid that actively. The only thing that you have ID verification for is purchasing certain things like alcohol, right? But this basically means like everything requires ID. Pro mass surveillance? No, I said hardware limitations, not mass surveillance. Like having some kind of safeguard that you give to minors that parents should implement. As opposed to mass surveillance, as opposed to having people put their identifications, as opposed to having people put their ID on. Like ID verification is not. ID verification is I think a horrible setup. It's understandable to demand some kind of limitation for minors, and what they do online. I think it's probably not the worst idea. But I don't think ID verification for every single person that is going on a website is the appropriate measure, especially on like especially on what the government has decided is what children shouldn't see. You know what I mean? Yeah. I think that so you're
might play out in a negative way. Because I think the biggest issue here is that platforms, what someone considers harmful content, especially under the Trump administration, is LGBTQ content, right?
That's exactly right. And this duty, it applies to the design features. So say the content recommendation system, the algorithm that provides you what's on your feed. Take the example you just gave, LGBT content. There is a contingent on the right that thinks that kids are turning trans just because they read things on the internet. Say the Attorney General of the United States sends a letter to Facebook saying,
this is what happens when the dumbest, most hateful people are the ones making all of the decisions. It's so crazy.
this is harmful material for children. What's Facebook going to do? They're going to tailor the content recommendation system so that it excludes anything related to being transgender whatsoever, because that is the safest thing for them to do, so nobody can say you're causing kids harm. Which means you're not going to see any trans related content if you're a minor, which means if you are trans, you might think you are all alone. You are not going to be able to find support, community, resources, or anything like that in the way
Tea leaf, free leaf. Thank you for the 50 gifted subs.
that I, as a little gay kid in a religious Jewish community who had never even heard of the fact there were other gay people, was able to find support and community on the internet when I was a kid. We're basically going backwards.
Yeah. And especially, I think, to do it at this time when we know other stuff that's considered harmful content is reproductive justice content, information about women's health care, anything about women's issues, civil liberties, social justice issues. These are all considered sort of harmful content, anxiety inducing.
And what's harmful content will grow and change and morph with whatever the subjective values of the person doing the determination is at any given time. And Republicans should probably beware as well, because when Democrats get elected into office again, should they ever decide they want to win an election, what's going to happen? They're going to target stuff that the right likes and say that's harmful to minors. What we're doing is handing a weapon to the government that can be whatever the government wants. And when that weapon targets speech and ideas, it's a real big problem.
Well, let's talk about some of those problems, because everything you just said, I think, again, to people sounds great, right? Like all they hear about all day is the harms of these platforms. And obviously these platforms do a lot of really nefarious bad things. But this law, I would argue, is really dangerous and bad. Number one is the censorship, right? Like this is essentially a coded censorship bill. So can you sort of walk me through how that sort of like duty of care could be weaponized to silence speech?
Quite easily, in fact. First of all, the original version of COSA didn't revolve around quote-unquote design features. What it did was it imposed a duty of care to prevent and mitigate those classifications of harm. And that initially drew criticism, including from me, because a duty of care means platforms, first of all, they have to figure out how users will reasonably react to certain content. And the problem with all of these kids bills so far is that they treat minors as a monolith. They treat them as a big group that all have the same interests and the same mental state, the same capacity, and it requires them to treat them all the same. But different kids, particularly with respect to, say, a 14-year-old versus a 17-year-old, have different reactions, different experiences, different ways they manage and cope with different content. And even within the same age range, different kids are different. They have different life experiences. They don't all react to content in the same way. So how platforms are supposed to figure it out for kids as a whole, I don't know. The alternative is that social media platforms have to be each kid's virtual psychiatrist. And if you don't trust social media companies to be taking care of kids in the first place, I don't know why you would trust them to do that. Either way, it's an impossibility. So what results from that is that Platforms have to basically restrict for minors everything but the safest content.
When you say safest, like, what does that even mean?
That's a great question. I don't know. Basically, like the content that would not even set off a reaction in even the most sensitive kid. And that's basically nothing. And we've been here before. Parents have tried to sue broadcasters, video game makers, the makers of Dungeons and Dragons for quote unquote harming kids. And the courts have all rejected the duty of care on First Amendment grounds because they've said that would basically restrict allowable speech to the most sensitive members of society. So what did the COSA sponsors decide to do? They made it, instead of directly about the content, they said, okay, this is only about design features. And to some people, that would seem to make sense. But let me read you again. Take reasonable care in the creation and implementation of any design feature to prevent and mitigate, say, mental health disorders, including anxiety, depression, eating disorders, substance use disorders, and suicidal behavior. So take infinite scroll, because that's usually cited as one of these design features.
And just infinite scroll means basically a feed that continues to refresh.
Right. So I'm not sure how infinite scroll, if you don't consider the content at all, could possibly cause an eating disorder. It would always have to do with the content that is displayed. And also, the fact of the matter is, Twitter's feed, Facebook's wall, what have you, those are all also design features. There is no way to mitigate against these harms, that they're very content-based harms, without considering the content, because features don't do anything to kids at all. They're just there.
Let's like kind of put this a lot more in like layman's terms. What you're saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, is they've tried to sort of reform this bill, which was essentially, it sort of fell off the map initially because it was very obviously a censorship bill. Now they're back saying like, we're not regulating the content, we're regulating these dangerous features, like keeping kids scrolling forever and these dangerous design features. And this is what you hear also from these groups that I deeply disagree with, like design it for us. And they're like, it's the features that are the problem, not the content. But as you're saying, you can't really decouple the two, because a feature in itself isn't inherently harmful. It's the content that it's delivering that is being litigated.
I always tell people, if we were in a situation where social media presented nothing but educational content and funny cat videos, and kids were like staying up late at night under their comforter, like unable to sleep because they're too busy learning from social media, and they were sleeping too much during class because they were up late all night learning, would we have this same panic? No, we wouldn't. It is all about the content, and they barely try to hide it. And now they're like trying just a little bit, and it's still completely insufficient, because really what they're going after is the content. And if there's one thing
thank you for another
that the First
50
Amendment doesn't
bomb.
allow, it is the suppression of content just because the government finds it objectionable or harmful. And that's what this bill does. And it gives the government a ton of power to decide for everyone what that harmful content is.
I think that's actually such a good way to think about it, because I think actually that's maybe like a good testing with each other, messaging each other, group chats basically. And that's what we're telling them is so like negative, and it's like you're addicted to communicating with your friends. It just reminds me of the moral panic over telephones and landlines, and like the woman is talking on the phone for too long, you know, and it's going to destroy her marriage or whatever.
I don't know. I feel like the point of regulation should come at the hardware side. Like it is literally in the UN resolution. The General Assembly reaffirming its faith in the importance of implementation of the Declaration of Granting Independence to Colonial Countries and Peoples, continued in its Resolution 1514 of December 14th, 1960. This is the importance of the universal realization of the right of peoples to self-determination and the speedy granting of independence of colonial countries and peoples for the effective guarantee and observance of human rights. Wait, this doesn't have the resistance, I don't think. Like, that is a real death threat. What I'm saying is not a death threat at all. What I'm saying is just what the law is right now. It doesn't matter if it's someone that you like, someone who you enjoy the content of. If they are in the IDF at that moment, while they're in the IDF and participating in an illegal raid, occupied peoples have a right to resist militarily against the occupational force. This is legal and moral. Here. If the occupying power considers it necessary for imperative reasons of security to take safety measures concerning civilians, it may at most subject them to the assigned residence or internment. Assigned residence could mean their own homes or elsewhere, as with the temporary evacuations described above. After effective occupation of territory, members of the territory's armed forces who have not surrendered, organized resistance movements, and genuine national liberation movements may resist the occupation. If they do so, they must distinguish themselves from the civilian population on the basis of GP1, at least carry their weapons openly during attacks and deployments. Civilians who take direct part in such hostilities lose their protection against attack for the time of their direct participation, but not their civilian status. If they do not participate directly in hostilities or no longer do so, for example, if they are hors de combat, which means no longer a participant in combat, as in, even if you are a member of the military, and this goes for members of the military, if you are retreating, if you are fleeing the battle, if you are a prisoner of war, there are new rules applied. If you're in the hospital, you are not an active enemy combatant. You cannot be killed by the occupational forces. You cannot be killed by the resistance forces. They are protected against their attacks. You know this from the lesson on the conduct of operations. Indirect support for the resistance movement, such as providing information or non-military supplies, does not constitute taking a direct part in hostilities. Those so engaged are civilians and therefore protected against attack. They may, however, be in contravention of security laws passed by the occupying power. In that case, they can be tried and sentenced for their freedom of movement restricted. Here. This is the 37th session of the UN General Assembly. Reaffirms the legitimacy of the struggle of peoples for independence, territorial integrity, national unity, and liberation from colonial and foreign domination and foreign occupation by all available means, including armed struggle. It has been reaffirmed time and time again. Are you worried? No. Not really. What can I do? What can I do? There's nothing I can do. It is what it is. Oh well. I do think that it's gotten worse over time and will only continue to be elevated by Asmongold and many other people like this who are just like awful, awful, monstrous sociopaths. But that's crazy. It is what it is, I guess. The resistance against this illegal occupying force is literally legal, definitionally legal. Okay? It's just the truth. And
no, it's not. If somebody attacks Hila Klein, they're gonna go to jail.
yeah, no shit, you fucking moron. I'm talking about in her participation in an illegal raid in the West Bank. Oh god. No, it's not. Yeah, of course if someone were to attack Hila Klein right now, of course they should go to jail. What kind of fucking idiocy is this? Oh my god.
Why is he telling people this? Why would he be what is wrong with you? Do you think he'll get banned for this? At this point, I don't think so. I think that Twitch just doesn't care. I do. I think that Twitch they're so ideologically captured by...
Yeah, Twitch is so woke. That's why they fucking never ban your bitch ass, dude. I don't know if they're actually intentionally obtuse or they're this stupid. Hassan, he's not misreading you by mistake. He's moving the conversation to something that makes you look bad. Yeah, of course. I know. I understand. I mean, or maybe he's that stupid. I don't know. He's definitely that stupid. It's a bit of both, I think. But again, it's no holds barred for these people. Okay? What is this? They're simultaneously too stupid and they're hate farming this. I know. All right. Still dealing with the drama? Damn, sorry to hear. Both sides egg each other on. It's not a both sides situation. It's not. It's not a both sides situation at all. This is just one side actively choosing to lie about what the contents of the video openly states. Like, at this point, it has turned into, like, back in the day, at least there was an attempt to clip something out of context, okay? Now it's turned into clipping things in context, but just seemingly lying about what the video is, and people's attention spans have shortened to such a degree that they don't even watch the video and try to understand it. It's so strange. But what's strange is that it works to a certain degree. To the dumbest guy out there, they hear that and they go, oh, I guess that, like, this Hassan guy is really fucking violent and scary. He wants, like, death threats against random content creators and their wives and shit. It's like, no, that's not what I'm saying at all. Yeah, it's just every time I get like positive press or something, these guys go gung ho and try to find any way to like actively get the internet communities to stir up some panic with the most ridiculous, intentionally obtuse, malicious smears. But I mean, the death threat thing, like actively demanding that I get killed, is actually a bridge too far, I think.
Like, I don't know what to do. I don't. He wants in on the lawsuit? I guess so. I mean, like, he's making a direct call for violence. a direct and immediate call for violence against people that are American citizens. That's insane. Oh my God. Yeah, now you come to that conclusion. Well, I mean, no, I've said that before. I mean, I have. And so, yeah, make a post like with Alpha Mike. Let's share it. Yeah, I think that's something Ethan should report to the FBI. Honestly, yeah.
Bro, this fucker has the most whiny way of speaking. It's so blatantly fake. Why does it matter being against American citizens? Am I missing something? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what he's even trying to imply there. It is pretty crazy, though. It's going to get you even more lost souls to convince the more jingoistic they go. Don't give them the satisfaction or even being seemingly worked up. They get even more feral. You've done nothing wrong. No, I know. I think he's just trying to throw shit at a wall to see what sticks.
Like, I'm going to be real. Like, I think that, like, I mean, at this point, like, you have... Like, it's domestic terror. Yeah, I mean, report what? Report that you have a person that's on a platform that's making an open call for violence and insinuating that one specific person should be a victim to that.
I mean, we just watched like the Roblox shit, right? Of online communities that are like in radicalized to do random acts of violence. And here you have Destiny's community actively pushing, like Destiny using his community to actively come after me in a violent way. Streamer Destiny, Stephen Kenneth Bonnell II, is attempting to incite his audience to attack kill Hassan Piker in real life for arguing that Palestinians should be allowed to defend themselves against war criminals breaking into their homes to kidnap them in the middle of the night. Honestly, I think you could perfectly justify attacking killing Hassan for IRL statements like this. People are saying, Destiny is just so far beyond the pale, it's actually unbelievable. Pepe, say less. Put me in. Cinema. Destiny, say no more. Salute. Okay, never mind. I'm re-Googling all this shit because I was under the impression that heritability literally just refers to general pattern observed between apparent options. Okay. Destiny, holy shit, does this grant me moral authority to do it? Will Asmongold talk about how unacceptable this is? Probably not. Considering that he himself is talking about how this should be like my accurate assessment of international law in the process of an illegal raid that an occupational force is conducting on an occupied peoples that is illegally occupied is what he perceives as a death threat. I fucking hate this industry, man. It really sucks. You said fun? Okay, well, I didn't realize that I was going to be getting fucking death threats from... I didn't realize that we were going to pass this red line as well. You know? Oh, well. international law gives occupied stop being so passive. An illegal content creator or not. Do you even think you need to use some of your resources on this one? It's going to make moves. Good to make moves when they're overextending. Yeah. To be honest, the fact that you even discuss his manners and maturity. You have interviewed opposition leaders to heads of state and ranking politicians, yet you keep talking about this terminally online gossip, slop entertainment. Well, I don't know if you noticed this, but the terminally online gossip, slop entertainment is being used as a vehicle to try to deplatform me for doing exactly that. And not only that, but also it has led to people issuing active death threats to their communities against me. So I think it's a little bit different than just like immature online gossip slop. At what point does it turn into like a real crime? I think this is the point where it has turned into a real crime. But will you consider it to be something beyond online gossip slop when I either get deplatformed or when I get killed, potentially, by a psychotic cult fan? I mean, that's a death threat. If I can't be upset about an active death threat, what can I be upset about? If an active death threat is considered gossip slop online. I don't know. Sociopathic. It's called later though. Right. This might surprise some people, but ignoring problems doesn't make them go away. Yeah, I mean, I wish it was the case. I wish it did. I have ignored it quite a bit. I've ignored it for the longest time, hoping that it does go away, but it seemingly does not. You know? Instead of taking care of his son, who is now turned into a Nazi, the sociopathic cult leader is actively telling his audience that it's moral to kill me in real life because I said Palestinians have a legal right to resist against an illegal occupying force conducting a night raid. Anyway. That's insane, man. Yeah, this is a solicitation to kill me from the guy who yesterday, I guess, admitted that he likes 15-year-old girls too. He attacks me just so he can maintain plausible deniability while he goes after Hassan, but I respect you, my Australian warlord. Bro, you literally say in the clip she's 15. What the fuck? Have you seen the 15-year-olds they're putting out today, though? Yeah, no, I mean, I posted this. Go boost it. No, this isn't fucking edgy humor, chat. That's crazy. That's not edgy humor. That's someone telling their community to hunt me down, justify attacking / killing Hassan IRL for statements like this. Anyway. Let's get back to the Online Safety Act.
Huge swaths of potentially questionable content or entirely pull out of the UK. Residents are finding themselves locked out of anything from period-related subreddits to hobbyist forums. 4 out of the top 5 free apps on the UK Apple Store right now are VPN services, as people are desperately trying to circumvent these filters and access crucial news information. But many systems have ways to detect VPNs, and the government will likely crack down on VPN use as well. Users on Reddit are reporting entire subreddits are now blocked in the UK. A post on one tech support subreddit shows the message, quote, "Due to local laws, we are temporarily restricting access to this content until we can estimate your age." Users on r/UK politics encountered a message reading, quote, "If you have a standard X account in the UK, presumably the vast majority of British users, you cannot see any protest footage that contains any violence tonight because of the Online Safety Act." Reddit has also blocked access to specific subreddits that contain crucial public health related information, like r/periods, r/stop smoking, r/stop drinking, and other subreddits that provide essential community support to users, including minors, like r/sexual assault, for example. These are all blocked. In fact, young people cannot access any information about sexual assault or potential abuse under these new child safety laws, meaning that they're actually less able to identify abuse and more likely to be exploited. The stuff that's being blocked under these child safety laws, like war reporting, human rights documentation, protest protest footage, LGBTQ and reproductive justice content is essential content that all young people should have access to in order to remain informed about the world. This mass gating of information is preventing people under 18 in the UK from accessing things like independent reporting, witness testimony of crimes, community analysis of war atrocities. Instead, young people are being fed a sanitized, mainstream, government-approved version of the internet. It's crucial for young people to learn and become educated about the world, and also to be able to gain access to information outside government propaganda and the mainstream media, which, let's be honest, mostly regurgitates government propaganda. These child safety laws limit young people's opportunities for critical thinking and civic understanding, and they isolate young people from global perspectives and from connecting with other young people in foreign countries like Palestine or China. And the way that enforcement of these child safety laws works, platforms are forced to err on the side of caution by overblocking vague categories of potentially disturbing content rather than having a more liberal approach. Young people are also being forced to provide highly sensitive personal data like their government documents, selfies, and biometric scans. Organizations including the Electronic Frontier Foundation and the Open Rights Group have flagged serious concerns that these age verification policies are a privacy nightmare. And meanwhile, these free VPNs that everyone's downloading risk exposing young people to even less regulated corners of the web, which totally undermines the people in power's whole stated goal of child safety. Not to mention the proliferation of free and shady VPN apps also raises privacy risks. And if you think that this is only happening in the UK, I need you to wake up, because the US Supreme Court has upheld age verification laws at every state level, with states like Nebraska and New York adopting similar frameworks to the UK. Australia and Ireland are also introducing variants of age checks and digital ID systems. Both the Democrats and the Republicans are completely aligned in ramming age verification laws through Congress and removing all free speech and the right to anonymity on the web. Leftists have completely dropped the ball on this issue. There is no meaningful opposition to this stuff in the US outside a few fringe libertarian groups and some journalists. And a lot of people on the left have spent the past several years feeding into the exact moral panic nonsense that these laws are predicated on. Also, I just want to reiterate again that age verification does not protect the youth from anything but information that the government doesn't like. Young people still find a way to access porn. They're simply locked out of accessing crucial content about news, health, privacy, etc. These laws also don't account for educational use or parental supervision on different platforms. They just create this binary system where all graphic or controversial or news content is treated the same, regardless of the context that it's presented in. We need to do everything we can right now to fight back against the moral panic about social media and fight these atrocious censorship bills that erode our civil liberties and destroy our right to free speech and free expression online. All right, that's it for this week's Free Speech Friday. Don't forget to subscribe to my tech and online culture newsletter, User Mag.
Isn't there another one that she did on this issue? Oh, the worst
Full
updated
biometric scans just to watch certain YouTube videos. YouTube is the... Welcome back to Free Speech Friday, my series covering the fight for free expression and civil liberties online. This week, YouTube rolled out automatic age verification in the US. It forces users who the company's AI system guesstimates might be under 18 to submit their government IDs or full biometric scans just to watch certain YouTube videos. YouTube is the first major tech platform to preemptively normalize invasive identity.
Here's a video on COSA. Oh, this is the one I was looking for.
What we're doing is handing a weapon to the government that can be whatever the government wants. And when that weapon targets speech and ideas, it's a real big problem.
Welcome back to Free Speech Friday. Today, I want to talk to you guys about one of the most dangerous laws in Congress right now. It's called the Kids Online Safety Act, and it was recently reintroduced by a bipartisan group of lawmakers, but it's being heavily pushed by the Democrats. It's a law that claims to make kids safer online, but please don't let the name fool you, because this law would give the government unprecedented power to censor speech across the entire internet in the name of protecting kids. From mental health support communities to LGBTQ forums, COSA endangers the very spaces that young young people turn to for help, identity, and connection. The Heritage Foundation has come out and said that it plans to use COSA to censor LGBTQ content off the internet. And Marsha Blackburn, the bill's co-sponsor, said that COSA must be passed in order to, quote, protect minor children from the transgender in this culture. Today, to help me break the whole bill down, is Ari Cohen from the Foundation for Individual Rights and Freedom. He's a brilliant tech policy expert and one of the foremost free speech lawyers in the country. Ari, welcome to Free Speech Friday.
Thanks for having me.
I feel like you and I have discussed COSA before on this very podcast, I think.
Too many times.
Okay, so this law sounds pretty good, I think, to a lot of people that don't know what's going on. Why is it so dangerous? Walk me through kind of the biggest reason why COSA is so harmful and will lead to such censorship.
So the law includes something that's called a duty of care. And it requires social media platforms basically to protect people against certain kinds of harms like anxieties, suicidal ideations, eating disorders, things like that. That requires platforms to look at content and say, this is going to cause someone harm. And if it is, what they're going to do is they are going to stop kids from seeing it because they could get in trouble if it causes some kind of damage, or even the government thinks that it might.
So I want to give people a concrete example, because when you say it requires the platforms to prevent showing harmful content, that sounds good, right? Give me an example of how that